All right. Hello, hello.
Hello.
So to start off, what I generally do is just go ahead and ask, what was your inspiration? What got you into, doing art and pushed you from being somebody who just kind of scribbles out the ideas in your head to actually creating something that you could share with people?
Well, whenever I was very young, my mother would do art and things of that nature. What she does is she physically cannot trace. It's a weird thing that she can't do, but she can look at something and make it almost perfect on another piece of paper. So whenever I was little and I'd have kinds of coloring books and stuff, and I'd color one and then she'd make me a new one and then she'd print it out so that I could have a bunch of them. Or she'd just make me cute little pictures so that whenever I was older, I could have them. So she was a really big inspiration whenever I was really young. But I didn't get into art until I was about 13. And it was because I was having a lot of emotional issues. So I needed something to vent out my
Yeah,
emotions.
having a creative outlet for emotions definitely helps, and I find that's a lot of where people get started.
Yeah, it certainly does make you feel better and it makes you feel like you have some kind of grasp on your emotions, whether they're negative or if you're just wanting to vent out how happy you are that day. It's just very easy to get lost. So, whenever you get lost, you can just figure it out by venting and putting it down on a piece of paper.
I heard somebody say something really beautiful at one point. It was that artists aren't necessarily just creating, they're kind of solving a problem in a way. And every new project that they start is a question, and the finished product is the answer to that question. And it's how they got from point A to point B. And I feel
Oh,
like that really applies in quite a few ways, whether you're in music or traditional, digital, whatever medium it is you're using. So, what would you say is a problem that kind of pushes you forward and makes you want to grow more? What's something specific that you think really makes you want to be a better artist?
well, in the beginning, it was because I was having really bad depression and issues of that nature that I needed to vent out. And then more recently, it's about more feeling proud of myself and needing something to make me feel like I can do it and I can be something that I want to be instead of what everybody else is trying to make me. So it's more about a personal journey and me trying to find who I am
So
and
you
what makes.
use your art as a way to express your individuality.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. I do it to show people who I am and what I'm most proud of and just how I think.
That's wonderful. That's really uplifting. From that point, one thing that I was just talking to Thick Neko about was criticism online. So it sounds
Hmm.
like you're really emotionally invested in this. So how do you handle that when it comes to somebody maybe taking a cruel stance and just for no reason at all, saying really mean things about the work that you do?
Well, whenever somebody tries to do that, I do get upset, but I try to calm myself down and be like, hey, they don't know the emotional investment necessarily that went into it. They don't know that this could hurt you that bad. So it's not that big of an issue. You just need to calm down and just, not worry about it. There's a lot of things people don't like themselves. It's a personal preference whenever it comes to art. It really, really is. So I try to just think of it as that's the one person's opinion over here. Some people may share it, but that doesn't necessarily matter in the big scheme of things because it makes you happy. So it's more of
That's a
it makes me
fantastic way to
happy.
look at it. That's a really good opinion that you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you see a lot of people. We were just talking about this, how occasionally you'll see it where somebody will say something cruel to a young and like an upstart artist, and it can just wipe, the confidence right out of them and make them not want to do it anymore. And that's
Yeah.
so disappointing to see because, as we were talking about in that previous episode, you never know what somebody could be like in 10 to 15 years as far as creativity goes. Maybe they give up, but at the same time, maybe they make something that becomes a cultural icon and people like, I mean, the guys who made the Disney movies, they had to start somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and all these stories. These are things that come from somebody who just starts with a passion. And when you kill somebody's passion early on, you might have just robbed the culture of something that could have been such a big deal later on. So that's wonderful that you don't really let it get to you like that, and you still keep pushing and doing your thing and accept that maybe that person has something else going on and it's not about you.
Yeah. Like, it used to really bother me, but once I just kind of realized that, well, I'm not going to please everyone, so it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, if they're doing it constructively and they're like, hey, this arm's a bit off, I'll be like, oh, thank you, I will practice on that. But if
Yeah,
it's
that's
something where they're
completely
trying
different
to,
though. That is
yeah,
constructive criticism. That's not just somebody saying something rude just for the sake of it.
yeah, I never had a problem with anything like that because it never made me feel personally attacked. But I have been told that I can't take criticism from people that have just attacked me and being like, hey, that kind of makes me feel bad. But it's a completely different thing to be constructive and to break somebody down and say that it's constructive criticism. So I do my best to just recognize that they aren't necessarily being constructive, but that doesn't matter. I can use that as a way to implement more elements into my art and make it better for me if it really bothers me and I can really start seeing problems in my art whenever somebody decides to do that. But overall, it doesn't necessarily matter to me because I can just calm myself down and be like, hey, well, you still love art. It's still a passion of yours. So why let the person over here just be mean and take that passion away from you?
That's a wonderful outlook. Good for you having achieved that still being as young as you are. That's something that most people seem to struggle with even later on in life.
Yeah. And it's pretty sad to see that because it's just these people are going to be wonderful one day and then they just get it taken away from them because people can't calm themselves down enough and not be as
And on that, I
uppity.
mean, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll quit and they won't ever draw anything again just based off of not wanting to and not having that drive. And that's totally fine. Everybody's got their own path to take. But
Yeah,
when you
definitely.
purposely put negativity out there, you're basically burning a field that could have potentially grown anything. You're stopping it from ever producing anything just for the sake of doing it. And that just is saddening for me. And I see it a lot, unfortunately, online. But it is what it is. And I can only hope that by having conversations like these, we get to some of those younger artists who are dealing with that kind of thing and they see your outlook on it as an artist yourself and kind of take notes from that and move forward with their own work. So I really do appreciate you, being willing to talk and have an open opinion about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So as far as your own personal style, what would you say influenced that, and what what is it you see that you think to yourself either, oh, I could do something like that, or I could do better than that, even in some cases.
Well, I certainly have a mix of different influences. In the beginning, it was, as I've heard from the other people on the other podcasts, it was definitely Pokemon that I had a lot of influence from.
That's gonna be everybody.
Yeah, it's probably going to be everybody, but it was definitely that. And it's a wonderful thing that it can inspire so many people. But it was certainly that, and then different kinds of cartoons. And then whenever I got older, there's this really amazing artist the Zodiac Lord. They are a pretty good artist, and whenever I was a little bit younger than I am now, um, I saw their style and I absolutely fell in love with how soft it was, yet it was so vibrant. Like their line art style is a lot less in your face than like the black style that I use. But it's like so wonderful. So I started trying to implement some of that and some of what that made me feel into my art. Of course, my line art is still darker and things like that, but that's because of what I prefer. So I just used different artists and different things from my background whenever I was younger to make kind of a mix of a style. And I'm still improving and things of that nature, so I'm still trying to add more to it.
Well,
In a
yeah, you're
sense,
still so young. I mean, you've got so much time to develop your talent and move forward and, really showcase yourself as an artist. It's no, I wouldn't say you're anywhere near your peak at this point, and that's not a dig at you. I mean, you're very
yeah,
talented. I've seen some of your work. It's really really nice. It's very it's got that kind of cute feel to it, and it makes me happy. It's very simplistic in that way that it just, when you look at it, it's like, oh, this is good. I like this. So very positive vibes off of that. And I I don't mean to discourage at all when I say that you're not near your peak. I'm saying that there's so much more room for you to be able to grow and just be so much better than you are right now.
honestly, that makes me really happy. I'm so glad that you like my art. And it doesn't upset me at all whenever you say that I haven't reached my peak, because if I reach my peak now, then that would be kind of
Then where do you
sad.
go from there, right?
Yeah, like, so it doesn't really matter if you say that. It doesn't upset me at all, and I understand what you're trying to say.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that comes across proper because I'm personally just a massive fan of art in all of its different mediums. That's part of what inspired me to do this. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm one of those people that it all makes me happy. I see it as, somebody came at this and they applied their creativity to create something, and I'd rather relish that for what it is and just the joy of it than tell somebody like, "Oh, you did this wrong." Because was it really matter if you get little things wrong? It's
yeah,
art. It can be whatever you want it to be. Picasso is one of the most famous painters ever, and oh man, his stuff is insanely messy compared to what you see nowadays from just casual, dabblers on the internet.
yeah. And I certainly hold the same opinion about art as you seem to. It's something that you can see it and see how much work somebody put into it and how much passion they have, and it's beautiful. It doesn't matter if the arm's too short at this point in time because they're going to practice and they're going to get it better if they really truly have a passion for it. So it's just something that
Exactly.
you can absolutely see when somebody cares about their art so much.
And it's a lovely thing to watch develop in somebody. I hope that eventually I'll get to start getting to the point to where I'd like to talk to more young artists like you, and that way I can watch you go as this goes on and maybe have you on in another episode, like 10, or so guests down the line, and see how you've developed from the first time that I spoke to you. So that's one thing that I'm really excited about in the future. um, as far as up and coming goes, though, uh, what would you recommend as the platform to get on to kind of express yourself and show your work off?
I personally believe it's kind of different for everybody. The more comfortable you are in a situation, the more you will show off how comfortable you are, if that makes any sense. And then it shows
Yeah,
people
absolutely. The more
that you
confidence
are
you have, the
more,
more willing you are to be vulnerable.
yeah. So it shows people how passionate you are and how comfortable you are in this. So it makes you seem more approachable and more confident and things of that nature. With me, it's more smaller platforms, I would say. Things that don't get that much like attention, or if it gets attention, it's a little bit less positive, like DeviantArt, seeing as how I have one. It's like one of those things where it feels like
Me and
it's
Thick
your own
Neko were
little
just
world.
talking about DeviantArt. It's such a wonderful place, but there's so much of a stigma attached to it just because of all the weirdness that came out of it back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still weird things to this day that happen, but
Oh yeah, all the time, no doubt. I mean, you could essentially just confuse the words deviant and degenerate at some points. It gets real weird.
yeah, definitely.
But it's a wonderful place. I mean, I've met quite a few, and I've worked with people through DeviantArt as well, and it seems to be a place where you can go. Not, I wouldn't say necessarily to post without judgment, but
Hmm.
it's not a place that many of the top tier professionals are at. So I would say that you
Yeah,
don't really get outshined in that way. Everybody's kind of at the level of beginning and getting going and learning, and so it's a just a massive build towards helping each other out in a lot of ways and in a lot of communities there. And that's such a
yeah,
beautiful thing to see. And there really needs to be more of it in the world. I really hope that there will be someday.
yeah, definitely. I just find it really soothing to be in a place where you don't feel like you're pressured into being this or being that or having that style. In DeviantArt, like there's so many different very talented artists that are very new or are pretty experienced but aren't at the level that they want to be yet. And you can just see how everybody progresses and how their styles change over time. And it gives you a lot of drive to continue to do your own art because maybe then you can be good at that person someday and then you can just go down the line and feel proud of yourself because you are getting to a place where you feel like you can just express yourself without having to feel like your art isn't good enough or anything of that nature. Of course, you're going to feel like that once in a while. That's a normal thing with being an artist. It's just you don't see the own beauty in your own art as much as somebody else can because you know the things that you did wrong during that or how long that piece took.
Oh my
Or
God, somebody put it into words.
like, yeah,
That's so accurate.
yeah. It's just one of those things where you can just criticize yourself more than anybody else can because you know what went into that piece and they don't.
Yeah.
They
Oh my
just
God.
know
Yeah.
what it makes them
I've
feel.
never been able to vocalize that before. You've hit the nail perfectly there. That's exactly what it is. It's that you know where your mistakes are. You see those lines where somebody else who sees it for the first time and makes an impression, they might not because they weren't in there doing the detail work and trying to figure out how to make it better, you know? So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's a revelation as far as I'm concerned. Well played. Like well said.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So this will be I'm gonna go ahead and ask about it anyway because I've asked everybody else. I know you're 17, but what is your take on NSFW content in the artist community?
I don't see a problem in it at all. I think it's really lovely that people can express themselves and do what makes them happy. I'm completely for people doing art that makes them happy. I just, I only draw the line whenever people are posting it in public places where younger people are and like doing things of that nature or making that kind of art of people's characters that they don't ask for. If you're like being respectful and things of that nature, I have no problem at all with it. I just personally get a little bit uncomfortable, so I try to stay away from that. But
Yeah, that
it's
makes
just one of
sense.
those things where it doesn't necessarily matter to me as long as you're being respectful to everybody and you are asking permission for people that are, it's their OCs and their characters that you're doing it. So as long as you're being respectful and asking them permission first, it's totally cool with me. I don't have a problem at all.
So here's one thing that I've been wondering about that I haven't had an opportunity. Well, I've had opportunities. I just haven't thought to ask it. I don't quite understand the culture of original characters and adoptables and things like that. Would you mind explaining a little bit about that from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, it's an original character is a character that someone makes to go into either original stories that they are making, or they make something kind of different that goes into fandoms that they enjoy, which is also called a fan character. And it's one of those things where your characters represent a piece of you. And it's something that you like, and it's something that can keep you passionate for drawing because you love this character so much. So with me, whenever I was younger and I was having issues, I'd have characters, and then you can make them cry or something in a drawing whenever you're feeling bad, and then it makes you feel better because you got that emotion out. And you could see that emotion on something else. And adoptables is like you see a design and you're like, that's perfect for a story I have, or that's perfect for a comic I have, and things of that nature. So if you see an adopt that you like you really love, it's one of those things where you love the design and you love the potential in said character, and you absolutely love the vibe you get off of them. So it's all mostly for making you happy and doing your projects that will make you happy and may bring in money or just may bring in exposure for you, because somebody's character can also be like a mascot for them. So it just kind of, it's something that's recognizable to a said artist and makes that artist feel better essentially, and makes them feel like they can just vent their emotions through said character. And if they're down, they can draw their character happy, and then it makes them happy because said character is a part of that person's soul, basically. It's emotions and
So I
personality.
understand the original character thing, but
Mm.
I'm still a little off on the adoptables. Would you say that's something like a pre-made commission almost?
Well, kind of, yeah. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, do you know when people commission for customs?
Yeah,
It's
I have
kind of
done so.
that. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, except it's one of those things where you have to have it catch your eye first, and you have to feel a strong emotion
So
from that
when you
character.
do an adoption, have you done these before?
I have done a few adoption posts and done some characters that I was not going to personally use and felt
So
like
in
other.
that case, do you put like a concept of the character up, and then when somebody sees it and they link with it and they decide they want to purchase it from you, do you put more work into like a finished quality drawing of that character? Do you pose it for, like, do you essentially take it as a commission just of this specific character essentially?
Well, how I do it is I make characters quite often. So whenever there's a character that I don't feel like I'm going to use or I don't feel attached to, just put it up for adoption. It's like it's like making a piece of art that's like, how do I put this into words? It's like making a painting and then you want to sell it because you have nowhere to put said painting. It's so it made you happy while you were making it, and now you want somebody else to be happy while they are owning it.
So it's like having a farmer's market of character design essentially.
Yeah, kinda. It's one of those things where you just don't have a use for it or need some money and you want somebody to be happy with said character. So it's just you don't want to keep that character because you feel like you won't use them to their full potential and you feel like somebody else can. So you just put them up for adoption, and I personally think it's a very wonderful thing when people put up characters that are old that they don't use anymore, because that shows that they put a lot of effort into that character and loved it enough for it to be such a big deal for it to be gone. And it's just something where you can see somebody's passion for a character or for an adopt that they worked really, really hard on. So
That
it's
makes
just,
sense.
yeah. I'm hoping it
So,
does because I'm terrible at speaking about that.
oh, don't worry about it. You're coming from a genuine place, and I think no matter what, when people listen, they're going to hear that and respond to it, and that's really what matters. On the topic of money, we've been talking about this in each of the previous episodes, and I'd like to continue the conversation. How do you go about pricing yourself, and what guidelines did you get to kind of help you come to how you go about it?
Well, right now, whenever I'm currently trying to price my commissions more because whenever I was younger, I of course had a lower quality of art than I do now. So it's one of those things where I look back on my old art, like what I priced my old art as, and then I bring that forward and then put some more money, like a couple more dollars or something of that nature, and so that it's more, it makes you feel like I cannot say anything today. Um, it's one of those things where I just take my commissions from my old time of doing it whenever I was younger, and I bring them forward, and then I put some
So
more
you
money
would
on it, as
essentially
to how
take
I
what
have.
you would have previously charged and then account for how much development you've had in your skill and
Yes,
charge an additional price on top of that to even out.
yeah, that's totally what I was just trying to say.
I got you. I understood. No worries. Um, Now, when you're doing that, uh, how do you do your initial pricings though? When you started out, what made you value yourself at whatever level it is that you were doing it at that point? And then when you grow from there, do you feel like at this point, like where you're at right now, would you say that when you do a commission piece, your hours that you put into that are being valued properly?
Well, whenever I was younger, I did DeviantArt points and things of that nature because I didn't have any kind of PayPal or anything like that, so I couldn't accept real money. But I priced myself based on what I saw others that I felt were at my level were pricing themselves at, which I don't necessarily recommend because then you can undersell yourself pretty bad, but that's something that I did. So I just looked around and felt like, okay, well, this is what these people are doing. So I'm going to price it like that, except maybe change up the prices a bit and sell my art for that. Or I would ask people that I was close to, like my mother or like friends and things like that, how much do you think this would be worth? How much would you pay for this? What would you want to pay for a piece like this so that I could get opinions from somebody that was outside and not necessarily an artist so that they could tell me how much they would willingly pay for it.
So you
Like my
branched
mother.
out to the community around you to try and get a sense of what you should be valued at.
Yes, definitely. I
That
definitely
makes
did
sense.
that.
100% that makes sense. When when you are doing things like that and reaching out to people, you said that you like to kind of get an outside look at it. But do you ever try and speak to the people that you would say are above your tier? Like, do you ever reach out to people that you admire to get that kind of information? And do you often, if so, receive a reply?
Well, I've tried to do that a few times, and most of the people I admire have a bigger fan base because I watch YouTube a lot and they have like YouTube videos and things of that nature. Whenever I try and like I'm in a Discord server that has a bunch of different artists, and so I asked them and everything, but nobody really helps me that much, except they said don't ever go below the minimum wage that your state or country offers
That's a
for
wise
an hour.
choice.
So that way you don't end up underselling yourself for like $2 a headshot, even though your headshots are really gorgeous. You just don't feel like it. So like it's one of those things where the more hours you put in, it's like a real job with minimum wage. You just try to do the minimum wage per hour and then add to that as much as you feel like you should. So it's something like
So,
that that I got advice on.
real quick, what is that server that you're in?
The server I'm in, hold up, I gotta figure out the name. It's Art Commissions. And it's one of these servers where it has just a bunch of
I'm
like,
in that one as well. I'm not a huge fan of that one personally. Shout out to Art Cafe. They're one of the most positive and best Discord servers I've seen for art, and I highly recommend you join them.
yeah,
Those guys are wonderful, and everything's about positivity, and I guarantee if you go in there and start asking these kinds of questions, you'll for sure get answers from people that are genuine and they want to see you succeed. Those guys are just all around some of the most positive people that I've seen in this community.
you should definitely leave. Would love
I
to see
absolutely will. In fact, I'm going to
something.
go ahead and put the link to that down in the description of this when I release it because I love those guys and I want to see them thrive as much as possible.
Yeah. I would love to see more artists and things of that nature because it really inspires me.
Now, as far as putting your work out there, you said DeviantArt is one of the ones that you use for just going and getting your work out. Is that where you get a lot of your commissions from, though? Where would you say your biggest source of people coming and hiring you is?
Well, it used to be Amino, but then I absolutely started hating it for my own reasons because I just cannot deal with that. I have enough patience for how many updates they got. So I used to do it on that for coins, and that was the most recent thing. Now I'm just getting back into actual money. So at the moment, I don't really have anywhere, but whenever I was younger and didn't have Amino, it was definitely DeviantArt that I got most of my commissions. That
Gotcha.
is, yeah,
Do you
that and
use Instagram or Twitter at all?
I do not have either one of those.
Oh man, everybody is just all up in high praises about Instagram for art. You should definitely consider that.
I'm definitely talking with my mother about that because she's wanting to do some crafting and things of that nature, and she wants me to
That's
look for
so
some
cute.
art. So I was thinking about making like a joint account for me and her
Nice,
so
nice.
we can both sell stuff. Yeah.
And that's cool to see that you would be willing to do something like that with your mom. A lot of people don't like to involve their parents in what they do online, so that's definitely a really I'm trying to think of the right word. Not courageous, but it's really neat to see that you would do something like that, especially having in the beginning spoken about how she was one of your main inspirations. Good
Yeah,
for
she
you. Good for you
certainly,
having that kind of relationship in your life. That's really wonderful.
yeah, she was the only constant in my life ever since I was younger, her and my grandmother. So it was one of those things where she's just in every aspect of my life, and I really admire her for everything she's done for me, and just she's just a really good person, and she's just very passionate about me as a person and about my art, and she's very, very supportive of what I do, and she's just very happy about it. So she's just a really wonderful person, and she's always been there for me, and she's always been the constant support in my life for pretty much everything I've ever wanted to do. So it's one of those things where I have a really good relationship with my mother.
That's beautiful, and big props to your mom. I hope she hears this. You're such a
Oh,
beautiful and wonderful woman. Please keep being you. You've raised such a good kid here.
I will certainly send this to her so she can hear that.
That's so awesome. I love to hear those kinds of stories. It's so positive, and it really is inspiring. And I hope more people can do that kind of thing and just involve their families. In the last
Mm-hmm.
episode, Thick Neko talked about how her brother was the inspiration for that. And it's just so nice to hear people talk about their family in that kind of way because you hear a lot of dysfunctional nonsense out and about in the world. So when you get to hear a genuine, like, this is a part of why I am who I am, that's so awesome and I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I've just
good for
had a
you.
really
Good for
good
you.
I've had a really good experience. She's a really good person.
Let's see. We've already talked about NSFW pricings. Let's go with where your future goals are. Where do you see yourself in 5 years with this, and what kind of big projects would you like to be interested in, if any?
Ooh, okay. So I've been talking to my mother a lot about doing my own comics and things of that nature because I got a custom from a friend that I am no longer talking to because I don't have the platform to talk to them anymore. But they gave me a custom that I paid for, of course, and it was a really beautiful character. And his name is Zeke. He's a moth human. So I really want to make his whole story and make that into a comic and release that because I feel like the whole fantasy that you can get from it would be really, really interesting. So I feel like what I want to be whenever I'm older is a comic artist and a story writer because whenever I was younger, I really loved to write stories, short stories, and things of that nature. And I got awards for it whenever I was really, really little because I was one of those really creative people in my class. So I just really enjoy storytelling and I really enjoy art. So I thought, why not just combine that and start making comics? That way you can do two things you love and make that into a constant. I'm also really into the whole freelance artist thing because I don't want to really attach myself to a big corporation because that's just not who I am. I don't want to be in a corporation. I don't want to have to change up my art necessarily for a big corporation. So it's just one of those things where I want to work for myself and make comics and do freelance as
You
much as
just
possible.
don't want to sacrifice yourself in exchange for success. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I want to be as genuine as truly possible to myself.
That's extremely admirable. Now, I'm my hope is that within the next 5 years, this pops off and I'm doing it big with it. And I gotta say, if you get going on a comic, you're coming back and we're doing another episode and we're gonna talk all about that. That's going
Yeah,
down. That's happening. It has to
definitely.
happen.
Definitely. If I can get my comics out and I can do that, I will definitely do my best if I am
Absolutely.
able
And
to
I'll
still
promote
be
the
in
hell out of
contact
it
with you.
because I love me some web comics. That is some of my favorite stuff in the world. My like on my Mount Rushmore is a man named Randy Mulholland, and he makes a web comic called Something Positive. He's been
Ooh,
putting it out since about 2011, and he puts out a strip every single day.
that sounds
It's
interesting.
the best story I've ever read. Over the years, it started out silly, and then over the years, he's branched off. I mean, I've gone through the full spectrum of emotions with this dude's comic. He's broken my heart. He's, taken me out of a dark place and helped me figure myself out. He's made me laugh when I felt like I couldn't. And I love it so much. And I want so badly to be able to just sit down and have a conversation like this with that man. That would mean the world to me.
I
So
hope I hope you
you
can get
better be the one
to
who
that
helps
point.
me open that door. If you get
Oh,
into it,
yeah.
we're talking about it.
I will definitely do my best and if I am still in contact with you, I am totally down to do another one of these episodes with you about my comic and my process stuff like that. That would definitely be something I'm willing to do.
100%. I'm so into it, and I'll try my best to help you make whatever it is kind of success you need to off of that. Absolutely. I'm all about supporting the artists. Let's get some projects out there.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely really cool with this whole thing. I really appreciate that.
Why, thank you. That means a lot to me. It's a matter of I had a conversation with myself one day where I thought to myself, what do I want to be? And it was almost like an existential crisis in a way. I mentioned this in the last episode where I didn't I didn't have a drive. And so when I really sat down and got down to, forgetting about the nonsense and trying to answer that question, my answer came I either want to be an artist or I want to be a patron of the arts and I want to try and help people develop their artistic talents. And the
That's
hope
really
is
beautiful.
that when I do these, I can kind of help push someone in the direction to further themselves. So we'll see how it plays out. I've gotten really, really good responses so far, but that doesn't always translate into success.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. That's all right. This is just one giant experience.
Yeah. I really hope everything works out for you, though. You're a really cool person.
We'll see. If it does, that'd be amazing. If it doesn't, that's all right. I didn't lose anything in doing it other than a little bit of money, but that's no big deal. I got to support some people with the talent that I really appreciate.
That's
So
just a
I think, I mean, at this point, we've pretty much run through a whole slew of conversation points.
yeah.
And let me see where we are on time. It looks like we're about 40 minutes in. So I think we can go ahead and bring this one to a close.
Alrighty.
Now, like I said in the previous one, I want to kind of try and make this a tradition on the show where, uh, I know right now I don't have an audience, and it means the world to me that you would come on here and help me build an audience so that I can maybe reach out and assist people and do what I can to be that patron of the arts. So, with that in mind, is there anything that you would say to an up and coming artist who's trying to get to the position that you're in? Any advice that you would give?
My advice is don't let others tell you what you should and shouldn't be. You should just keep exploring what you enjoy and what you want to do, because the more passionate you are about art, the more likely it is that you will be able to get to a point where I am and feel proud of yourself and make something of the art that you're doing instead of just making it you being happy you can make art and sell it and make other people happy and just bring light onto the art community as a whole and onto yourself. It's one of those things where you just got to keep going at it, you got to keep practicing, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. I don't care if it's a parent or anything like that. As long as you're passionate about it, keep going for it.
That's beautiful and really inspirational. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit here and have a conversation with me. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. And I hope that down the line, maybe this will be something that kind of helps you reach a level of success beyond where you're at right now. But
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that. So we'll see how it plays out. And I think, just again, thank you. It really does mean so much to me that you would do this for absolutely nothing. And just keep being you. You're fantastic, and you're going to go far with this amazing attitude that you have towards everything.
That makes me happy. Thank you. You're a really good person, so I don't have any problems with coming on here, even if I don't get paid or anything like that. That's something that I'm really worried about, especially at the moment. So definitely, if you have a need for another guest and you want to talk to me or something, just let me know and I'll try to figure out if I can or not. And I'd be happy to be
Absolutely.
back on here.
I'm going to try and keep it a little spread out where I don't repeat a guest for about 10 episodes between.
Yeah.
So the door is open at all times. Absolutely. If you got something you just want to talk about and get it out there and put it on the podcast, we can totally do the recording, and then I'll just
Mhm.
release it in the time frame of that nice space, unless it's something like if you put a big project out or something like that and you just want the attention and I can do that for you and facilitate that, I totally will.
Thank you very much for giving all these artists some kind of other platform that they may not have been able to have before, and being able to put people out there and just, help them. It's a really, really sweet thing that you're doing, and it's going to help a lot of people. I can just tell already, even if it's not, something that you get a big audience for, it's definitely something that's going to give somebody a big confidence boost. So I just really appreciate that.
Well, I just needed some positivity in my life, and this seemed like the best way to do it. So, all right, on that, we're going to go ahead and close. It's been a wonderful conversation, and last time, thank you so much.
Of course, you were wonderful. Thank you for speaking with me.